and welcome to episode 2 of the Fear Street trilogy review videos, but part 2 of the Fear Street Netflix trilogy, 1978. So we're going back in time from where we were, although not the beginning, so it kind of gets a little bit messy. But once again, I've got my trusty notes. I've got a lot of notes. Hopefully I'm not going to go through them all. I just sort of kind of noted down a timeline of the film just so I don't get too lost. Hopefully it's going to work. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed the first video. I enjoyed the film more than I realised, I think. I really liked it on first viewing, and then I watched it a second time and I was like, maybe it wasn't quite that good. But I sort of sat and thought about it, and it's a good film. It's a good film. This film is great. I really like this film, and watching it a second time again, sort of when I've been rewatching it and obviously writing notes, I've been very critical and sort of really looking at things that shouldn't be there, things that happen. You're like, you messed up there. I really like this film. This is such a good film, and I think on IMDb at least, it's the highest rated out of the 3. Probably going to be my highest rated. Spoilers, but without further ado, let's go into it. So, film starts with a little bit of a montage of what happened in the first film, and then we come in and we focus on Gillian Jacobs. Fans of Community will know her as Britta. Fantastic actress. But she sat there, she's got the news on, and obviously there's all the killings from the mall, and it blames Kate and Simon for everything that happened in the supermarket and stuff. Then an alarm clock goes off, and Gillian gets up, walks away, and you see the note that the sheriff posted through someone's door in the first film. So obviously now we know this is the person that got the note saying it's happening again. You then cut. Now I'll sort of get onto this probably nearer the end of the film, I think, but you go and you follow Gillian, and she goes up to this sort of big cabinet with loads of clocks. There's digital alarm clocks, like analog alarm clocks, you know, the ones with the bells on top and things like that. And they've all got little notes with like eat dinner, bath, feed dog, whatever. And it's kind of like, okay, that's different. Like, who the hell is this person? Okay. So she goes through, does her little bits and stuff, and then the clocks keep going off and everything. There's then a knock at the door, and it frightens her. Now, the bit I loved about this was there was a knock at the door, and then a flashlight through the letterbox. So the letterbox was pushed open, and you see a beam of light come across, and then this person's whatever is then sort of stalking around the house, sort of shining their light through the window and stuff. And I was just sat there like, you didn't give her a second to answer the door. Literally knock the door, then looking through the letterbox, like before you'd finished knocking. It was just like, I mean, she's probably not sat next to the door ready to answer it. Give her a second to get there. But as she's been going around locking the doors and stuff, she's left the window open. So all of a sudden, straight away, you're sort of thinking, probably shouldn't have done that. So she's sort of going around, and this person's stalking the house, and then you hear the window open, and Gillian grabs a knife. And then sort of just as she's about to go and stab this intruder, she looks up and it's Dina. And she's like, oh yeah, I probably don't want to stab you. Look up, and there's Josh just with his head poking through the window, just like, what's up? You know, no shout of knife, no Dina, no, please don't, we're kids, you know. No, doesn't say anything. He's just sat there looking at her, and she's just like, okay, maybe I won't stab you. They then go and show that they've got Sam tied up in the boot. And I didn't notice, but I assume it's still with that super powerful telephone cord from the end of the first film. So you know, they don't make phones like they used to. This cord is incredible. So, you know, they've just broken into someone's house, who you still don't know who this is, really. Like, there's some guesses, but you don't know. They then show this, you know, possessed person in the trunk, and they're just like, we need your help. And, you know, Gillian Jacobs' character, who you're assuming is C. Berman, who survived Camp Nightwing. They then phoned, didn't get an answer. She then phoned back at the end of the first film, which is when Sam was then possessed, because Berman was saying, like, hey, ain't over. You know, they've, assuming it is her, they've just rocked up at her house with a possessed person, like, hey, so, you know, you're still alive too, so you need to help us. And she's just like, no, go away, like, leave me alone. And I'd be exactly the same, like, what are you doing here? Like, go. But, you know, they sort of like, you know, beg to her in herself, and so they bring Sam into the house, tie her to a radiator. Again, I'm not entirely sure what with, potentially this incredible telephone cord. And if it is, then we need to get hold of the manufacturer and just use it for everything. They then go into the front room. She tells them to sit down on the floor. It's like, gee, thanks, you know, don't offer a seat, but sit on the floor. She brings over this book and opens it up, and she says, this picture, there's a little Polaroid photo, and it's like, this picture was taken the first day of camp, 1978. A week later, my sister was dead. And it's like, oh, not good. So you then get quite a cool little thing with, because obviously there's all the clocks and stuff. You then get the slow grandfather clock chime, and then you sort of swirl into the photo, sort of that back in time sort of graphic that a lot of people use. But I quite like that. That was quite clever. So it starts off, you don't even know you're at camp, because you've got Sadie Sink, who fans of Stranger Things will know. Again, I assume Netflix are kind of doing it on purpose. We're like, hey, you know Maya Hawke, hey, you know Sadie Sink, hey, you know Gillian Jacobs. Like, you don't know any of these other people, but you know these people, so cool, right? I mean, she's a good actress, so it's fair enough, but I just wonder if that's why they're sort of doing it, to sort of appeal to that sort of young adult, like, we know you like Stranger Things, so this is going to captivate you. But yeah, it starts with her running through this forest and getting clotheslined out of nowhere. And you find out it's a guy that did it, and it's really like, oh, okay, you know, different eras and everything, but damn, all right. She then gets tied to a tree, because, you know, that's quite a normal thing to do. And there's 3 girls and a guy, who you then realise, you know, as I said, it's the guy that, you know, clocked her, and it's like, well, okay. And then they're calling her a witch, and they're saying, you know what happens to witches? They burn the witches, they kill the witches, and it's just like, I don't know why is she a witch? I don't quite understand why she's a witch, but they think she's a witch, and they need to get rid of her. So the sort of ringleader head girl, Sheila, tells her 2 friends to hold her legs, hold her feet, hold her steady, and gets the lighter off the guy, Will. And then at that point, her friends are like, yeah, okay, like, you frightened her, like, what are you doing? Like, why are you actually getting a lighter for? And then she actually holds it to Sadie's arm and burns her, which was a bit sort of, it was one of those where it's all like, you know, this is the start of the film, like, okay. You then hear a whistle, and two boys are running across, sort of saying, like, stop it, what are you doing? Stop. And you find out that these are two camp counsellors. One is Nick, whose brother is Will, and you're like, wait a minute, those names ring a bell. And then the other guy, who seems to be more in charge than anything, is Kurt. Now, I thought that he was another good brother, but it doesn't seem like he is. So I think he is just a random sort of head counsellor or something. I'm not entirely sure, but I've sort of had a look through, and I can't see, you know, he seems to be played, you know, his character's name is Kurt. It's not Kurt Good or anything like that, so I assume not. But yeah, they're sort of like, what the hell's going on? Like, why are you burning a girl, and why is she tied to a tree? And they're sort of like, well, she stole money from us. And it's just like, wow, okay, like, she stole like $10 off you, and that's why you're burning her tied to a tree. A little bit overkill there, you know, just saying. And then they're sort of like, yeah, but it wasn't her, you know, she was possessed, she's a witch, yada yada yada. Kurt then says, well, hey, this is like your 3rd strike, like, you've messed up plenty of times already, so you're gone, you're out, your camp's over for you, get out. And then Will turns around and says, well, you know, she was just kind of burnt, like, maybe we should just take it a little bit easy on her. So they're sort of like, all right, fine, but next time you mess up, you're done. She then says she should go and see the nurse. You've got a nice, nasty burn mark. That they say you should go and see Nurse Lane. And then it just sort of like clicked in the back of their head. But the first time I watched it, I didn't notice that. It was just like, you should see the nurse. Like, well, yeah, duh. So she wanders off, presumably going to the nurse's office. You then see two characters, Cindy and Tommy, boy and a girl, cleaning the outhouse. Disgusting job. And Cindy gets some sort of red marked stain on her, and she's like, oh my god, this is never going to come out. Oh my god, this is awful. This is the worst thing ever. And it's just like, I mean, you're cleaning a toilet. That's worse, maybe. Like, out of everything, are you really that worried about having a little mark on your shirt? But it is what it is. She's a very prim and proper sort of person. They kiss, and Tommy, squeezes her butt, and she's like, oh, don't do that. Told you. Now, what is never actually mentioned in I don't think it's in the entire film, is that these are two camp counsellors. They're not sort of camp goers, campers, which I thought was a little bit odd, because when I was watching it, it was just like, oh, you're on cleaning duty. Like, I assume campers have to do cleaning duty. But yeah, they're actually counsellors. But it's never actually alluded to, and I thought that was a bit weird. It was just like, oh, right, they're in charge. Oh, right. Okay. Totally get that now. So yeah, I thought it was a bit odd that it was never sort of, they're not wearing uniforms or anything. Literally everyone's just in civvies, and it's like, oh, you're not campers. But I just thought that was a bit kind of confusing in a way, but what it is, what it is. So Cindy then turns around and says, wait a minute, where are the other two? And you just saw there like, no, what other two? So she goes off to find these other two people. They sort of have she finds them, they're having sex, fair play to them, listen to music, start smoking a joint and stuff. And Cindy's sort of like, why are you like this? Why are you doing this? You were supposed to be cleaning the toilets. You're goofing off. Like, you're making my life difficult. Screw you. And then this other girl turns around and calls her a snitch, and it sort of like resonates with Cindy. Like, it's like, I don't want to be called that. She doesn't say anything, but it's one of those where, the actress played it perfectly for me. I thought it was really well done with, she got called snitch, and it was just like kind of like gut punch reaction. Like, yeah, right. Yeah, so she leaves, bumps into Kurt, and she's like, wait, what happened to my sister? And then he sort of sniffs and obviously can smell the marijuana, and he's like, I can't remember what he says. It's something like, is that medicinal marijuana I smell? And I'll be, or something like that. And it's just like, and she's sort of like, I don't care. What's going on with my sister now? Like, so he's just like, yeah, sort her out, will you? We then go to the nurse's office, and Ziggy, we now know her name is Ziggy, is walking around looking for the nurse. Like, nurse isn't about at all. She finds a book, and there's loads of like witch stuff, and there's like the witch's curse is written, and there's like witches, it says witch's mark, and there's like this maze pattern, which the viewers recognize from the first film, where it had the flame in the middle and stuff. And it's like, that's interesting. Why has she got that? The nurse appears, sort of slight jump scare type moment. Helps Ziggy, like tells her what to do. And then she's talking about her daughter, Ruby Lane, who was the switchblade killer who attacked Simon in the first film. The one thing I didn't pick up in the first time of viewing is she says about her being a choir singer, and that she had a beautiful voice, she used to love singing songs, and it's just like, oh, that's why the ghost is always singing and stuff. Makes more sense now. And then, she's sort of going through and saying like, she's not a bad girl, she wasn't a bad girl, this wasn't her, something happened to her, she was possessed, yada yada yada. And she's doing this bandage, and Ziggy sort of sat there saying, There's Lang, really, this is hurting, stop it, please, this is really tight now. Finally sort of gets through to her, like, can you stop? So she then leaves, bumps into Cindy, her sister. They have a little argument about basically they're both shady siders, and clearly Cindy is trying to be a Sunny Veiler or trying to show that she's not a shady sider, with her being very prim and proper, dressing properly, not swearing, and sort of Ziggy's there like, you're a shady sider, deal with it. Like, and what? She then, walks off. We go to see Tommy and Cindy now cleaning the mess hall. Poor Tommy and Cindy literally getting every cleaning job going. But it's now kind of like, oh, are they shady siders? Like, are Sunny Veiler's sort of giving them all the crap jobs? Interesting. And then Nurse Lane attacks Tommy. Completely out of the blue. She just walks in, she's got hold of a knife, which Cindy sees and does nothing. Thanks, Cindy. Cheers. Really looking after your boyfriend there. So she says, I can't help you. Either way, you're going to die tonight because I saw your name on the stone wall. Attacks him. He fights her off, smacks her head against a bench, knocks her out, and he's just like, what the hell just happened? Like, whoa. The police turn up, obviously take her away. And then one of the policemen is talking to Nick, and he says, hey, I'm really sorry to hear about your dad's passing, but you're going to be my boss one day. You're going to be the sheriff, so, take it easy on me when you are the boss. And then, obviously, then it starts to click. It's like, oh, that's Sheriff Nick Good from the first film. So he does actually go out to be a sheriff. Fair play. So, yeah, I thought we're going to be sheriff, which we know. Yeah, so we know he obviously turns into the sheriff. Then Cindy and Ziggy meet up, and Cindy is sort of saying, like, so what happened earlier with Nurse Lane? Like, was she okay? Like, she hasn't taken anything? You didn't see anything weird in her office and that? And Ziggy's basically just saying, look, it was the witch. Clearly it was the witch. Like, Nurse Lane has done nothing wrong. It's the witch. She was possessed, yada, yada. And Cindy's sort of saying, there's no such thing. There's no curse. Like, stop being so stupid. And then Ziggy basically says to Cindy, look, your life's going to go to hell too. You're just going to die. It's going to go downhill just like the rest of us because you're a shady sider. You're cursed. Little bits happen, and we work out that Kurt and Sheila, the girl that tried to burn Ziggy, did burn Ziggy, are Sunny Veilers. And then you've got Tommy, Cindy, Gary, and girl whose name I'm not sure of, but they're four counsellors, from Shady Side. And there's going to be this big colour war between red and blue, Sunnyvale v Shady Side. Sunnyvale have won every single camp colour war. No, Shady Side have never, ever come close. So Kurt's up there giving this rousing speech of like, we're Sunnyvale, we're the best. Like, I don't want them to have anything. Like, come on, let's sort this out. And then the girl whose name I can't remember gets up, and she's very sort of hippie. She's rolling a joint, which is kind of like, what is with the counsellors smoking weed all the time? But whatever. And she sort of gets up. She's like, cool, thanks for that speech. That was so awesome. And she sort of thinks he's cute and everything. And then she sort of turns around to Shady Side and she was like, well, it doesn't matter if we win or lose. Like, we're all winners in our hearts and things like that. And it's like, cool. So there's going to be a big game of Capture the Flag tonight. It's like, cool. Love a game of Capture the Flag. So they're all getting prepared, all getting ready. Tommy is sort of speaking to the team who are going to be looking after the flag. And then he speaks to a sort of a fat geeky kid, like, this guy's chubby, his glasses and stuff. And he's like, you're the jailer, right? So you've got the most important job. You've got to make sure. And then he's just he sort of like starts to sweat. He gets very sort of breathless and he kind of spaces out. And you hear like a whisper. Now, I didn't notice it the first time in the first film. I noticed it the second time, and I think it was the same with this one. Didn't notice the first time, noticed the second time that you hear it's the whisper of Tommy. So it's a bit like, oh. Now, as we know, because we've seen the wall, when Nurse Lane said, I saw your name on the stone wall, it's kind of like, oh, wait, is he going to be a killer? I'm intrigued. And then he hears his voice whispered, and it's just like, you're going to get possessed. Tommy and Cindy go to the infirmary because Cindy's like, she was on drugs. She's taken something. We need to find it, give it to the police, and then that's why. That's what happened, because she knows, she can tell that Tommy's not doing well. Like, he doesn't understand why he was attacked, why she was saying the weird stuff. Like, she told him he's going to die tonight, like either by her hand or other means. Like, hey, it's kind of going to freak someone out. So she wants to sort of get to the bottom and work out what's going on. So they go in, open the desk drawer, and it's quite funny that they open the desk drawer, find an unmarked bottle of pills like straight away. So it's like, really? The first thing you find is an unmarked bottle of pills. So Cindy's like, well, there you go. That's got to be the problem, isn't it? Surely. They also find the witch's book, and they're like, all right, that was a bit weird stuff. Like, okay. And then it shows, I think it's like the middle pages, there's a map of Camp Nightwing, and it's got writing all over it. And it shows that where the camp is on the site of Union, which is apparently the very first settlement of the area. So you had Union in 1666, and then obviously now you have Sunnyvale and Shadyside. So obviously the town grew and then sort of split into two. Alice and Arnie, who are the two other counsellors who were having sex earlier and argued with Cindy and were getting high and stuff, they steal the book and they run off. They find the bottle of pills. So they each take one because it's like, cool, especially if Nurse Lane was on something, then, happy days. This is going to be a nice trip or something. So they pop a couple of pills, and Tommy once again hears a whisper. Here's his name as he leaves the infirmary. And Cindy sort of turns around and was like, come on, like, they've got the book, they've got the drugs, like, we've got to go and get them. Now, I will say that the whispering was overused, in my opinion, in this film, because Tommy's now heard it twice. He hears it another time in a minute. Cindy also hears whispering, and I think potentially Ziggy does too, maybe only once, but Tommy definitely hears it like 3-4 times. Cindy hears it at least twice, and it's kind of like, all right, we get it now. It's kind of like, calm down. Like when you did it in the first film with Ryan, as I said, I completely missed it the first time. I heard a whisper or something, but didn't realise it was his name. Whereas now it's just like, you might as well just say his name. You don't need to whisper because it's kind of obvious now and it's really overused. So that kind of didn't let it down or anything, but it was kind of annoying, if that makes sense. We then find Ziggy sat in her bunk and she's mixing some red paint together for some reason. Don't know why. And there's loads of writing all over her wall, like Ziggy is a witch bitch, Ziggy sucks cocks in hell. And Nick Good walks in and he's like, oh, been decorating, have you? And she's like, yeah, I totally did this to my own bunk. Like, yeah, good one, twat. And then he's like, guess Sheila's been involved. And she's like, you think? And then he sees what she's doing and he's just like, oh, cool, it looks like blood. And she's like, well, yeah. And he's like, that's very Carrie of you. And she's like, you like Stephen King? Like, you've read Carrie? And he's just like, yeah, it's like my second favourite book. I love Pet Sematary. Like, Stephen King is my boy. And she's a bit like, but you're like a goody two-shoes. I mean, he is a good. You're a goody two-shoes Sunnyvale. Like, why would you like Stephen King? Why would you know that sort of stuff? And he's just like, maybe some people are different. And there's a nice little spark going on between them. And you're just like, interesting. And then he says, to be honest, I've got a better plan than paint. I've got a better plan. And she, at first she's sort of like, I don't care, bugger off. But then, kind of intrigues her. So we'll see if we can find out what that plan is. We go back to the woods, and Arnie and Alice are off in front, and they're not feeling anything. These drugs are doing nothing. And Arnie's he saw on the pill it said L4A4, and he's just like, I know what that is. That rings a bell, but maybe some kind of weird acid or something. So she gives him another one because Alice gives him another one. She's like, take another one, see if that does anything. He then realizes that it's Tylenol. He's just like, oh, now I understand why I'm not tripping out. So fair enough. And poor Tommy, like he's just trudging through the woods. Like he looks like hell, the poor guy. They find a load of empty graves, and they're like, all right, that's fun. Like, who's been digging all these? And they're like, wait. They look at the map and they realise that Nurse Lane's been digging a load of graves because she's been marking them off with little X's, and they're just like, all right, that's a bit weird. And then Arnie sort of walks off a little bit to relieve himself, and he finds a house, and he's just like, found the witch's house. They end up going in because Alice is just like, well, I can't come all this way for nothing. So they go into this house, and Alice is like, someone's been here quite recently. She sort of feels the sort of candle wick, and then I assume it's still warm, although that must mean they've been very, very recently. But yeah, so she's sort of like, someone's been here. They then end up going through this little tunnel, finding the witch's mark on the floor. Again, obviously we know what it is because it's the circle. And they also see the stone walls with all these names on. So Arnie's just like, I'm bored. Like, maybe someone's got some drugs or something somewhere. Like, I've had Tylenol. That's not done anything. So he comes back up, and Tommy's just sat down. I'm pretty certain that that's the third time that Tommy hears the whispering before they go into the witch's room. So he finds him, he's completely spaced out. He's like, sort of clapping in front of his face and stuff. And it's just like, nope, nothing. He's just like, oh man, like, well, you feel better or something? Like, walks past him. And that's when Cindy then hears a whisper for the first time. And she notices that this cave just carries on going. Like, it's not just this room. Like, this is huge. And then Alice gets her attention, takes her to the wall, and they see Tommy's name written at the bottom. And then Cindy sort of blames Alice, and she's just like, yeah, I totally wrote your name on. I totally just stood here for 2 seconds carving your boyfriend's name into a wall. That's exactly what just happened, right? So they come back out because they're just like, all right, what the hell is going on? And just as they come out, Tommy's axing Arnie right in the face a couple of times. So they're like, cool, nope. They run back through. Obviously, Cindy now realizes, hey, let's go through this tunnel. Tommy grabs her leg, but she sort of fights him off, and somehow kicking him causes a cave in, quite luckily. We cut back to, I think I'm sure the capture the flag started already at this point. But Sheila gets a note from Will to meet at the toilets, which is, really romantic, but sure, okay. So she goes there. I did like it because she walked into the toilet, and he sort of laid rose petals on the floor and everything, and she opens a cubicle and there's like rose petals and flowers all over the place, and she was like, I mean, I'd have done it in your bunk, but fair play, this is cool. And it's just like, in a toilet, really? All right. So she picks up this note and it says, look up. She looks up, and Ziggy and Nick, who are in the store behind, pull a cord. This bucket empties out, and loads of bugs just rain down on Sheila. Ziggy and Nick run out, put a screwdriver, I think, through the door so that Sheila can't get out, and she's just there with loads of bugs on her, screaming her head off. We've now got this. The only issue I have with this film is how much it sort of like went, here's these people doing this, here's these people doing this, here's these people doing this, here's these people doing this. It really did sort of bounce backwards and forwards. But yeah, you've got Cindy and Alice who are in the tunnel. They're arguing about sort of like, hey, your boyfriend just axed my boyfriend in the face. Yeah, but it's not him. He must be feeling bad, or something must be going on. Yeah, it's a witch. No, it's not. The witch doesn't exist. Yada, yada, yada. Cindy walks off. Once again, hears a whisper, and then realizes that she's going in circles. And it's just like, that's not good. We then bounce back to Jeremy, the Shadyside jailer, and he's got like 3 Sunnyvalers in jail, so they didn't do well capturing the flag. But he's been really nice. You know, he's like, do you guys want a snack? Do you guys want a drink? And the Sunnyvale's just like, shut up, do one, nerd. And it's just like, guy, like he's been really nice. Like he's up. They hear a noise. He opens the door and he's just like, there's no one there. But you know, I'm the Shady Side jailer. These Sunnyvalers are my captives. You can't. Then gets egged by a couple of Sunnyvalers, which obviously incapacitates him. The Sunnyvaler prisoners escape, and he's left on his own. He's just like, oh, God damn it. So he wipes the egg off, looks up, and Tommy's there, and he's just like, oh, Tommy, I'm sorry, like, you know, I messed up. And then Tommy goes in and axes him. So then we bounce over to the science and nature lab where obviously all these bugs came from, and Ziggy and Nick are just chatting. They're like, that was such a good idea, that played out so well. And they're really bonding nicely. Like, you know, they're sort of talking about Ziggy and her sister. Nick speaks about his dad, sort of like, you know, yeah, he put so much burden on me and everything. Like, you know, just trying to think, they either kiss or they're like millimeters away from kissing. They hear a scream. They find, well, I say Jeremy, but they find a pool of blood. And it's just like, cool, something's not right. So Nick jumps into counselor action and, you know, sort of starts getting things sorted out. But yeah, there ain't much left of Jeremy. Like, damn, Tommy went down on him. Cindy and Alice, I think they're sort of like wandering through the tunnels trying to figure a way out. And they see this, I don't even know what it is. It looks like a brain. There's just this throbbing blob on the floor, which Alice touches for some reason. Like, it's one of those where it's just like, even if you're not in a horror film, because you wouldn't know it, why would you touch the random throbbing brain? You know, there's flies all over the place. Like, it stinks. Like, why would you do this? So she touches this blob and she just has visions of all the Shady Side killers. She then sort of like panics and runs, and she keeps seeing, oh, that's it, sorry, she sees Cindy, and Cindy's sort of like dead. So she sort of runs off and she keeps seeing all these dead random people. And then she trips up and breaks her ankle. And it's just like, ooh, that's not going to help if you've got to get running later. We flash back. So Nick and Gary, the Shady Side counsellor, are sort of like working together. They're like, right, we've got to go. This game's got to end. Like, we need to get everyone back to this mess hall. Like, it's not right. Something's going horribly wrong. We need to get this sorted out. So we'll go sort this out. He tells Ziggy to stay. You know, she's like, but it's my sister. And he's like, no, it's fine. We'll sort it out. You staying here. I'm not. And he just sort of touches the side of her face and he's like, I'm not letting anything happen to you. Of which everyone sort of, all the Sunnyvalers and they in the mess hall are just like, whoa, okay. You're a counsellor. Sunnyvaler. She's a Shady Side camper. What's going on there? So he's just like, no, we'll sort it. It's fine. It's my job, sort of thing. And it's just like, yeah, because you're going to be police sheriff. And then Sheila's friends are like, hey, the hell did you do with Sheila? Where is she? And Ziggy's like, oh, crap. She runs out. Nick's already disappeared, which fair play to her. he's gone. So Ziggy's like, right, yeah, okay, maybe I'll go get her. That's fair enough. Like, whoops. So she runs off. The hippie girl, Shady Side counsellor, is killed by Tommy. But she gets killed. She's had sex with Kurt, the Sunnyvaler big top dog. They've had sex. He's gone to have a shower. She's having a joint. And Tommy kills her. And it's just like, okay. We're just losing everyone left, right and centre here. Fair enough. Cindy resets Alice's ankle in probably the most disgusting part of the film. It really is. It's like, damn. And as I wrote here, like, she's got a very small bag, a very tiny sort of clutch bag sort of thing, which she empties out, and she's got sort of like bandages and all sorts of first aid stuff in there. And it's just like, okay. I mean, I know you're a counsellor and obviously you're sort of being teacher's pet and everything, but that's a lot of stuff in that bag. Like, that seems very fortunate. It is what it is, but they're having a talk and Cindy explains why she did snitch. She admits to being a snitch, but she's like, you know, this all happened. I was getting in trouble. My dad had just run away with a girl my age. My mum couldn't come because she was drinking. And it was at that point that I realised shady ciders are all cursed. So I thought, hey, I'm going to, pretend to be better. Like, I'm going to go to college. I'm going to, shake off my shady side. But, that's obviously not going to work. But then she notices the red moss that got on her shirt. And she's like, wait a minute, we must be near the camp. And it's just like, well, I'm pretty certain the whole site was built around the camp, but whatever. I thought that was the whole point of it, that you went to see because it was all there. But they sort of worked out that they must be kind of close to this outhouse. And it's just like, well, that's handy. We then have the Sunnyvale jailer, and he's got 2 Shadyside prisoners, I think. And they hear Nick saying, game's over, get back to the mess hall, it's done, this isn't a drill, literally, if I catch any of you out here any longer, you're going to lose a point. So the Shadysiders are like, hey, should we listen to him? Like, the hell? And in complete contrast to Jeremy, the Shadysider jailer, the Sunnyvale jailer is telling them to shut up, and he says, look, give me a minute, I'll go and check it out. If the game is over, then fine, come get you, whatever. So he walks off with the lamp, and the Shadysiders is just like, we need the light. Cool. So they were just, sat in the forest in pitch black now, like, okay. And then the boy's just like, that's okay, I've got a match, it's fine. So he strikes a match, and they're just like, should we go? Like, should we really stay here? Match goes out, lights another match, and Tommy's there. And they're just like, oh, well, Tommy scared us. Like, whoa, what's going on? And then he axes them. Cindy and Alice, they find the toilet pretty much at the perfect time for Ziggy, Sheila and Gary to all be in the toilet as well. So Ziggy comes in, she's like, Sheila, I'm sorry, we got to go. Like, this isn't good. Sheila then attacks her because she's like, hey, you poured bugs over me, screw you. Ziggy knocks her the hell out. Just fair play, it was a good punch. Just as Gary walks in, he's just like, what the hell's going on in here? Like, Jesus, you got to go. At which point they hear the shouting from down the toilet, and Ziggy sticks her head down the toilet. This is like, all right, sure, like, that's what most normal people would do, is like, a Portaloo, long drops. If you've been to a festival, you know what I'm talking about. You don't stick your head near that. You don't go near that. But I had to write it down because it is my absolute favourite quote, probably ever, I think now, is, she sort of sticks her head down the toilet and Gary's just like, what are you doing? And she just turns around, she's like, my sister's in the toilet. And it was one of those moments when I had to pause the film and just fall about laughing. It was just the way she just turned around and delivered that line, like, just deadpan. Like, I couldn't have done it. I'd have been laughing my head off if I tried to say that line. So fair play, Sadie Sink, you did well there. Nick then finds the remains of the two prisoners. He throws up and stuff. Now, one thing I will say is he's touched the door and he's got a load of blood on his hand. He's like, what the hell? Looks up and sees just absolute carnage of these 2 remains. Goes outside and throws up, and then wipes his hand on his shirt. And it was one of those where I thought, I was sort of trying to remember the first film, and I was just like, that's not good. Because, if he's killed someone and you're now rubbing blood on yourself, like, is that right? But then I was thinking about it, and it was like, well, actually, it probably doesn't make sense, or it probably doesn't matter, because Tommy's alive. So it's not quite the same as, hey, this killer's ignoring us because it's just going for Sam or whatever. It's, it's just basically Tommy's just psycho at the moment. Tommy's doing his best Michael Myers impression at the moment. So, but yeah, it was when he first did it, I was just like, that's not right. You don't want to do that. Kurt turns up and Nick kind of sort of gets his sheriff head on. And he's just like, look, go sort it out, get the bus, get the kids out of here, ring the bell, just to let us know in I think it's like 15 minutes, just get the bus, get out, just go, take the kids, go. In the meantime, Gary and Ziggy have put the bucket that had the bugs in down the toilet on a long rope, which this rope seems extremely long. but whatever, Hollywood. And then they're pulling Alice up, and Tommy arrives, takes a swing. I'm pretty certain Ziggy ducks, and Gary just has his head taken clean off. Good shot. Fair play. So they drop the bucket. Alice goes flying, lands on her bad ankle. Like, yeah, that's going to work out well. And then I'm not entirely sure how it works, but Gary's body falls down the toilet, even though he's not standing near the toilet. Lands on her leg, like poor Alice. Like, she's just there, like, are you kidding me? But yeah, sort of like a headless corpse just lands on her. Oh, so she sort of runs out. Ziggy runs out the toilet, and I can't remember where she runs into Nick. I can't remember if it's like just beside the toilet or just down the road or something, but whatever. Like, they bump into each other, and he's just like, "What the hell are you doing out here?" And she's like, "We left Sheila." And also, Tommy's like right there, so let's go. So they run off to the Science and Nature lab again. It seems to be the way that they are. I think Nick sort of says like, Jeremy's dead. Oh, that was it, yeah, because he's got the blood in his shirt, and she's just like, "Oh my god, is that you?" And he's just like, "No." And yeah, so Ziggy realizes that it's only Shadysiders that are being killed. Like, what the hell? And then you sort of go back to it, and you're just like, oh yeah, because the Sunnyvale prisoners were released. Then Tommy showed up, killed the Shadysider. The Sunnyvale jailer left. Then all of a sudden the Shadysiders got killed. And that's why I put that bit about the counsellor back in, which I had left out, because, again, she's in Kurt's house, room, bunk, whatever. He's obviously having a shower. Easy pickings, really, She gets killed, and Tommy's obviously just walked off, leaving Kurt, who's a Sunnyvaler, alone. And it's just like, oh, okay, that's interesting. Because, as I said, again, he's not a ghost killer, so he's not after one person, but he is only going after Shadysiders. And it's just like, ah. And then Nick's like, look, I've let a lot of people die tonight. At which point, Ziggy does the whole sort of girlfriend thing of, it's not your fault. But he's just like, look, I'm not letting anything happen to you. It's not happening. And it's just like, oh, so sweet. She then sort of turns around and says, look, do you believe in this curse? Like, do you believe this is the witch? And he's just like, yeah, I'm totally with you. Like, I'm different to the other Sunnyvalers. Like, you guys are screwed. Like, there's definitely a witch. He gets axed in the leg, which is more interesting later when he's running around absolutely fine. But yeah, it's right in the calf as well. So, but yeah, he sort of pushes Ziggy out of the way, and she runs off. Cindy's looking for a way out, and Alice gets a nosebleed and realizes that she's next to Satan's Stone, which is where Sarah Fier, the witch, cut off her hand. So she's just like, interesting. Then everyone appears in the mess hall. So the bus is gone. So there's no one else there. So Ziggy gets there. Tommy follows her in. And Cindy is underneath the kitchen grate, which you assume is the mess hall because it's kitchen. Ziggy stabs Tommy. And he's just like, oi. And then the bit that made me laugh was she then throws a burlap sack over his head because he's like choking her. And I was just like, oh yeah, of course, the Camp Nightwing killer had a sack on his head. Forgot about that part. You know what I mean? It was one of those where I was just like, yeah. Just completely forgot that that's how his look was. Whereas this whole time he's just been going around as Tommy, with a normal human face. And it was just like, oh, yeah, so that's where that came from. Fair enough. Sort of chases her through, and then he trips Ziggy up. And just as he's about to go for the killer blows, Cindy stabs him. She stabs him in the back, and he turns around like, oh. And so she's just like, nope, we're done. I'm not having this. And just stabs him like 4 or 5 times or something. Fair play. He goes down. Thank God that's over. Alice comes up and says, hey, guess what I found? So she's got the hand, and they realise, like, this needs to go with the body. We need to attach the hand to the body or put the bones together or whatever, reunite them to end this curse. We can do this tonight. Like, this could happen. And Ziggy then gets a nosebleed, which drips onto the hand bones, which then gives her the vision. So it seems to be that people get nosebleeds when they're near the presence, because in the first film, Dina had a nosebleed while she was in the van. Alice has had a nosebleed when she's been near the hand, obviously. And now the two people that have bled onto the bones, so when Sam in the first film touched the floor with a bloody hand on the grave, she had this vision of the witch, and now Ziggy's nosebleed has dripped onto it, and she's had these I think pretty certain it's the exact same pictures. And it's at this point then that the underground blob starts going crazy and things start coming out of it, and you're just like, whoa! And Tommy's hand starts twitching. They then have a little bit of a bonding session, sort of like Alice and Cindy are just like, look, we're good. Like, we've got to end this. We've got to do this. And then Tommy, from nowhere, absolutely nowhere, kills Alice. Like, they look up and they're like, oh God, no. Alice turns around and just gets whacked. Cindy then cuts his head off with a shovel. Like, she sort of pins him up against the wall by the neck. And she's just like, why wouldn't you die? And just like levers his head off, and everyone's just there like, and then you hear Ruby's song. She appears out of the grate, and it's just like, something's not right. And Tommy also grabs his headless corpse, grabs Ziggy's leg, and Cindy sort of pulls her away. She's like, no, this isn't good. Something's not right. We gotta go. Like, nope. So they run off and they get to the hanging tree where Sarah Fier was hung and presumably is, buried. And all the ghost killers are moving in. They can see them all coming. You got Ruby Lane, the disfigured Bat Boy, Tommy, and the milkman. I'm sure it's the milkman. So they're like, oh God, we got to get this done. They keep digging and they find a stone, and it said the witch forever lives. And they realise that the bones aren't there. With, as viewers, we're sat there like, oh, they're over by the road somewhere else, But yeah, they're not there. I can tell you that right now. So Cindy's just like, Ziggy, you got to go. You got to run. Just go. She hits Tommy with a shovel, and then he just whacks her back with the axe. It was as if, as if hitting a ghost didn't do anything, crazily. And then he knocks her to the ground and just axes her and kills her. Ziggy gets stabbed by the milkman guy. Like, she doesn't get anywhere. She gets like 2 paces away running, and he just grabs her and stabs her, and it's just like, oh. He stabs her a lot, and Tommy axes Cindy a lot. Sort of like, Ziggy's one I can kind of understand because he's sort of stabbing her in the stomach and the side. So it's kind of like, okay, that might not kill you straight away. Ain't going to feel too good. But Cindy is getting axed sort of like right down the breastbone multiple times, and she's still just there like, I love you, sis. I'm sorry. It's my fault. And it's just like, sorry, Cindy. There's no time for bonding. You're dead. But they both die. They both got their hands outstretched towards each other. And then Nick arrives, and he's just like, nope. He ignores Cindy, like, doesn't care about Cindy whatsoever. It's like, nope, don't care. Goes straight to Ziggy, starts performing CPR, and of course, it's a film. She comes back to life. Multiple stab wounds, plenty of internal bleeding and stuff, but a little bit of CPR and a couple of rescue breaths. Perfect, fine. Ziggy told everyone. She told everyone that, it was the witch. This is what happened. There was a curse. We got the hand bone and stuff like that, and everyone ignores her, including Nick. He turns around and, when the policeman who said, hey, you're going to be my boss, he's just like, what happened? He's like, Tommy Slater just went absolutely insane. And then Ziggy says, I never saw him again. And that was it. Because I was interested that, obviously they've had this bonding, they've had this sort of relationship building. Like, what's going on now then? But yeah, apparently they then never saw each other again. So whether it was a case of like, yeah, you're talking crazy, I can't be seen to be hearing you do this. But then she says, there is no end. Which is what confused me a little bit, because no ghost killers have come for her. that's the part that I didn't quite understand, was when it was like, well, no one's trying to kill you though. Like, you know, Sam's chained up in there. She's not going for you. She's going for Dina. Like, I don't understand why there's no end, because you seem pretty cushy apart from all your clocks. It's at that point there's a little sort of jump scare with the alarm clock. It sort of like brings the two kids and C. Berman back into the present, which again is two things that hadn't been explained in this film. One, what are all these clocks for? Like, is it literally some sort of PTSD thing that she has to have this routine clocks telling her, right, now it's time to do this, right, now it's time to do this? That's never explained. Like, I assume it's a PTSD coping mechanism after the trauma of, you know, Camp Nightwing. But if she's been living like that for the rest of her life, like, and also, yeah, it's never explained. Like, well, you seem to be doing all right with your life. Like, no one's trying to kill you. So you say there's no end, but I don't know. Like that, it's the 1994 parts of this film that I don't particularly like, because as a slasher film or whatever, like, some acting aside, 1978 is a great film. Like, it's a great camp killer film. Is the present day stuff that's a bit like, well, what's all the clocks for then? You know, do you get visits? Is that why you had to lock all your doors and windows? Like, do ghost killers try to get into your house? Because if it's Tommy, then surely he would axe your front door. You know, that's not explained. So the clocks aren't explained, and the fact that, you know, she's sort of living in fear of nothing that we can work out. But yeah, that's what it is. But then Dina and Josh are like, do you think the hand's still by the tree? And she's like, yeah, I guess so. Oh, that's it. Yeah, they also realise that she's Ziggy, not Cindy, because she's down as C. Berman. But her name is, I think it's Christine or Christina. But obviously they think it's Cindy because of the C, and it's just like, oh, I'm Ziggy. But yeah, so they're like, well, we know where the skeleton is. Like, we know where Sarah Fier's buried now. We just need the hand. We can do this. We can literally do what you tried to do all those years ago. And they sort of realised that these ghost killers are coming because they found the hand bone and they found Sarah Fier's bones. So, you know, Sarah Fier doesn't want to be found. Like, you know, if you reunite it, does that end her curse? Does that end her? Like, you know, does that kill her for real? But I do like the fact that the hanging tree is the centerpiece of the Shady Side Mall. I thought that was great. I loved that. So they sort of digging through the floor, through the soil and stuff. There's the hand bone. Ziggy, in the meantime, is phoning for Nick. You know, it's like, hey, you know, you put the letter through my notebook, letterbox. You know what's going on. You know what's happened. You've told me it's happening again. It is happening again. However, we can end it. We can do this. And then Dina gets a nosebleed when they park up by the side of the road where the bones are buried. So yeah, she's getting a nosebleed and she's just like, no, I don't care. I'm not having it. This is done. This is over. So she opens the letter jacket that they buried the bones in. She goes to place her hand down and she's just like, I got you, you. I can't think if she says, I got you, you bitch, or I got you, you witch. Puts the hand down and then has a flashback, and she sort of turns into this oldie timey person. You know, she's got sort of wearing rags and stuff. She's got a bloody knife in her hand. She's leaning over a well, and it's what we assume is Sarah Fier's face reflection looking back at her after seeing sort of the visions with Sam and Ziggy. It's like, that woman looks familiar. And then you hear from, you know, someone in the background going, Sarah Fier, and Dina/Sarah turns around. And obviously that sets us up for the third film, which is 1666. And we're going to discover the origin of fear. Spelled F-I-E-R, because clever like that. So yeah, so that was part 2, 1978. I give it 4.5 stars. As I said, for the camp killer slasher film, I thought it was amazing. The present day stuff kind of let it down a little bit for me. I don't know if I'd give it 5 stars. I think that would probably be too much anyway, but it was better than 94. It seemed more current to the time, sort of like the outfits looked a bit more 70s sort of style. The hair was a bit more 70s style. The camp sort of vibe was very sort of old school. You know, there wasn't any sort of like, you know, it was very old cassette players and radios and, you know, archery and stuff. There was no video games or anything like that. So I loved that. Again, they did what they did with the first film and basically Googled 1978 music and just kept putting stuff on, but there was some good music in 1978, so fair enough. But I love the film, and it sort of sets up the last one nicely. I mean, obviously, the main film is 1666, and then presumably we're then going to see some sort of conclusion to the current times, whether it's going to end the curse or Dina becomes Sarah Fier and she gets completely possessed or something, comes into the real world or something like that. We will see. We will see. That's it for me. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope that didn't spoil anything for you. There will be a spoiler warning at the beginning. But yeah, thanks so much for watching. Please do like, subscribe, comment below. Did you like it? Do you think it was better than the first one? Do you think it was worse than the first one? What do you think is going to happen in the last one? Do you think we're going to get an ending or anything? Or let me know. But thanks so much, and get ready for the origin of fear. Bye.